losing is not losing a trade and getting stopped out or being wrong on the trade. Losing is not following the plan. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Real Life Trading Pivot Podcast, brought to you by our preferred partner, TradeNation. And we got my beautiful looking host, Dean, on the call with us again for another episode. And Dean, number one, how are you? And number two, how excited are you for this podcast?
One, I'm very well, as always. Always have to have that mindset that I'm very well, even when I'm not, Dan. But I'm okay. I'm always see the positive side. And I'm extremely excited for this podcast because, I think the topic is going to resonate with a lot of people. How are you, by the way?
I'm doing terrific. I do think it's an episode that I feel like a lot of people, number one, don't talk about, but everybody experiences. Everybody just assumes they're going to get into the market and just win every single trade. Otherwise, why would you take a trade if you thought you were going to lose? So what we want to talk about today is what is the worst trade we've ever taken and what is the biggest losses that we've taken on trades. And probably more importantly than that is what was the process of coming back mentally, physically, and emotionally in that stage. So I'm going to hit you with the question first. What do you have a worst trade in mind, a trade that really did not go according to plan, and why? Why didn't it go to plan?
It's a little bit different, if I'm honest, my worst trade. Because my worst trade was actually a winning trade. Okay. But it was my first ever trade. So it was my first ever trade on BP, and I didn't really know what was happening. And I ended up clicking a few buttons and making like $150. So then I just thought I'd mastered everything, which I went on to about a 6-trade losing streak before I decided that I need to go and figure this out a little bit more. So that would be my worst trade that I can remember. But an actual worst trade, losing trade, one which just continuously went wrong. This was earlier on in my trading career, and I can't think exactly when it was. Must be nearly 4 years ago. But I was trading Netflix, and I got into a trade. I used to have this strategy where if I had an inside candle, I would just play the break. So I did that, and it was working really well. But then it started to go against me. So instead of just letting myself get stopped out, I kept moving my stop lower and lower and lower, and it just the price just kept following and hunting my stop effectively. So I ended up losing in total around 2.4 hours, I think. So that was the worst one because it was just such poor management. I should have just let myself be stopped out, but that fear of having that losing trade. And I think it was the fear of having to, because my wife is very inquisitive. So she's like, okay, what's happening with your trading today? What, I didn't want to go downstairs and tell her, by the way, I've, losing trade. Because I just I didn't like that at the time. I hated the fear of losing. I hated it. So,
well, I would think that nobody loves to lose. Again, it's kind of like, you could do as much analysis on the stock market as you want. You could have the same setup, the volume, the candles, the locate, everything. And it doesn't mean the trade has to work, right? And I think that is something that a lot of newer traders definitely struggle with. I mean, you wake up and you try to win at whatever task you're trying to do, right? You're just to accomplish something that's a small win and it counts. So I do think, I would say I'm a victim of the stop movement early in the career too. I started out with, I would do no stops whatsoever. I was just in it because things come back, and you go for the rides. And I don't remember a big major setback or loss. It was just a series of losses because I was mentally trying to manage the trades, which is also one of the biggest mistakes, I think. Not actually putting the stop into the broker just because you start telling yourself like, okay, if I just wait a little bit, what's an extra $50? What's an extra $100 if it goes a little lower? But okay, that should be the bounce spot. Okay, it's too close to it, so I'll give it an extra. And now all of a sudden you're doing that same thing, just mentally, and just never hitting the button to get it stopped out. I think a lot of A lot of traders will face that as a big issue for their trading for sure. So on the trade for you that you were kind of moving, that you just kept moving your stops down, what did you take out of that trade? What did you learn from that trade?
I learned to leave my ego at the door, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and just accept it. Right, that's what I learned. But at the time, like anything that I do, is I want to win. So I see me getting into a trade at the time as winning. Now I've had to flip that and use losing as my strength. And I think I've mentioned it many times in our community. But whenever I enter a trade now, I automatically assume I'm going to lose, and I'm comfortable with that. I feel like I'm going to lose. Like I've got this completely wrong. I've lost. So it's a bit of a psychological play that I had to train myself to think about now. But that was one thing that I really learned early on, is that, if you're wrong, you're wrong. Just be wrong, and then go back, do some back testing, and figure out if you would have done anything differently. Sometimes you go back and you've lost, and you probably wouldn't have done anything differently, which I accept also as part of the process and as part of the game. So. I think that is one takeaway that I had.
I think something that Tracy said that definitely resonated, and just something I never really thought about before. But after she said it, I'm like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. It just, especially we're in the day and age of just redefining what words mean. I mean, we're in a recession, and they come out and say, no, that's not really what recession is anymore. So redefining what a loss is, I think, is very helpful, and I think it resonated with me, and kind of when I explained it to other traders, just understanding what a loss is. It helps me, and even in the mentor groups that I teach, I think it resonates with a lot of people. It's losing is not losing a trade and getting stopped out or being wrong on the trade. Losing is not following the plan, right? So if you get into a trade, if you're executing your trade, meaning that you're finding the stock you like, you're watching the volume, you're getting in on the certain setup that you've been back trading, planning, testing. Even if you don't move stops at all and you get stopped out, you take a full R loss on the trade, you didn't really lose on the trade. Financially, you're down money, right? But you know that following that plan consistently over and over again will lead to the positive gains, right? You're going to win more than you lose on that type of setup or that type of trade. And just being able to really understand what a loss is, because loss in trading is different than I think what we would just naturally assume that word actually means. If you lose a baseball game, all right, well you lost, it's on the record. But if you only really lose in trading if you start doing things where you readjust stops, or you're getting FOMO because Tesla's running and you want to catch it and you missed it and you're jumping in, and you start doing things that are not part of your plan. That would be a loss, right? That's you failing at your business. Your business, you have your own business plan, and if you start straying away from it, sure, you can get lucky here and there, but ultimately, longevity-wise, you're in a little bit more of a losing. You have the odds tilted to the loss side than the win side, longevity.
I totally agree, and 2 points on that. One, you just brought up your ex in front of me, and now you're asking me questions, talking about Tracy and things, so I'm really upset about that.
Too soon.
Too soon. It's too raw for me. It's too raw in this new relationship and things. But no, Tracy is full of wisdom, and I agree with that. I think it's just about redefining what words actually mean. And for me, I always try to put a little bit of logic into everything that I do. And you can look at the greatest sports people in the world; they've all taken losses. But it's how they react to them losses and what they do afterwards is whether they end up becoming considered losers or whether they have gone on to become winners again. And I think trading is definitely something that I think has the same type of mindset. It's about just learning what happened, not giving up, and then just trying to improve each time. And I think I struggled with that at the start. I took a loss. I took it to heart, really. I was like, okay, I'm doing this all wrong. But my biggest mistake was, this must be my trading plan. So I guess what? I ripped this one up. I'll try a new one and move on from there, end up taking another loss. And I think at the first point, I went through a number of trading plans. So maybe we can talk about that on another episode, Dan. But I do think it's a mindset thing. And once you can get over the loss, because it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Once you can get comfortable with that feeling, and then you're just able to it just becomes like water off a duck's back, as we say in the UK. It's like, look, it's just nothing. You just move on from it and you go again tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that sports analogy is a solid one because even if you look at, I mean, look at the Yankees. The last time they won the World Series. I mean, or whichever team makes it and wins the World Series, or you win a Super Bowl, or whatever it is. Typically, you're not winning every single game that you play, right? But you're still getting to that destination that you want to get to, and I think that is something that people have to understand. It's not if you take a loss, don't try to make it all back on your next trade. I had a trader. He shot me a message. I think it was like early this month. But I had a rough day. He was down like 4 Rs, I think, and he said it was just not really. He said he went back, reviewed his trades, and he wasn't really following his plan. He was out there more so gambling than strategizing, and a lot of it had to do with kind of chasing and FOMOing. And I was like, listen, just slow down, slow down for the day.
Yeah.
You don't have to make it all back today. You don't have to make it all back tomorrow. Keep your eye on what you're actually trying to do. Be consistent, right? That's the key. Just be consistent. And there's going to be a rough day. There's going to be really great days. Don't over celebrate the really good ones. Don't beat yourself up over the negative ones. Try to find that medium balance, and that will, if you can find that consistency, you'll be very solid at trading or realistically anything that you do.
Do you have a rule in place? So if you lost like 1 or 2 trades in a day, that you're done for the day, or do you just
Yeah. So for me, it's not trades; it's Rs. So if I lose 2 Rs in a day, I'm calling it quits. And I got that from Jeremy. Even on if you go to reallifetrading.com, the sample plan, that's in there. I adopted the R loss. So for me, it's 2 Rs on a trade. If I lose 5 Rs for the week, I'm done. 10 Rs for the month. It could be week 2, and I'll sit there. I'll watch the market, and I won't trade. I had the luxury. I haven't hit the 10 R loss. So I haven't had to shut down the account, but I'm more than fine to abide by the rules. And people have rules in place, right? They have the rules. I think most people probably in the real life trading community have an actual written down plan. If you don't have one, I highly suggest that person gets that written down plan. But creating the rules is half the battle. Following the rules is the bigger thing, right? So make sure that you stick to the plan that you have. Because if you go back like that trader did and review the trades that lost, and I could guarantee there's going to be some times on a lot of those trades where you're like, well, yeah, it didn't really fit my plan. I'm not sure why I was in it, or got caught up in the emotion, or got caught up in the hype of the market. And for me, it just didn't work out. So if you're able to decrease those or start to really scratch away the surface of okay, if I just follow the plan and have some faith in the actual overall plan, because that plan should be back traded, should be tested. If it works back trading and back testing, going forward in a real live market, it shouldn't really have that crazy of a swing to a more negative direction if it was working in back trading. So it's one of those things that just you have to stick to that plan.
Yeah, that's cool. And I've got a question for you, Dan, because I know that you're an awesome trader. I do watch the live rooms as well, which I get a lot of intake from. I don't trade stocks very often, but I just like to hear your voice. What is the worst trade that you have ever taken?
I think for me, it was the biggest trades, the biggest loss, and the worst trades were also, I think, very similar to you, where they were actually. Yeah, I would say it was a good trade, and then it became bad. So for me, I was trading stocks. I was getting comfortable with it. I started understanding a lot of what was happening in the market, and then I was like, I could make so much more money with options. Like, what if I just, instead of taking all the trades with shares, I'm just doing it all with options? And I wasn't really applying, honestly, a R system to the options. I didn't really quite understand it at that point of how to really convert that into options as far as risk unit. And I was listening to, I think, Bloomberg through Thinkorswim or something like that, and there was news that crossed the wire on Tesla. I forget what the news is. It's probably irrelevant at this point, but something had to do. Everyone was still at that time fearful that Tesla was going bankruptcy and all this stuff. And this news kind of flipped it, right? They're saying like, okay, no, they're looking good, or whatever the productivities, whatever the news was. And I was like, man, I'm jumping in, right? I jumped in quick, went heavy with some calls, and I ended up making, I don't know, $17,000, $18,000 within 10, 15 minutes, right? So I'll say that would be one of my best trades, except one, I sold way too soon. I could have made a lot more. But two, I just how I said before, don't over celebrate the wins. Celebrate the wins, but don't get too cocky. Don't let it get into your ego. Man, after that day, I felt like the greatest option trader in the world. I was like, I don't know, like I'm gonna be rich by Friday. Like this is the easiest thing. I made more money in 15 minutes than most people do in a month. Like it was crazy. And the next day, I went back in to dive to that honeypot again. I was like, okay. The only difference is I'm just watching charts at this point, and I still kind of newer at trading. I was just getting used to the charts.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of playing off that news from yesterday. I was like, okay, this is going to go bonkers again. As soon as we get a break, we got the break, turned into a trap, didn't sell. So I think within 2 days, not only did I give that 17,000 back, but I lost like another 5,000 on top. Right. And it was just me going and just letting myself get into my own head of hey, it worked once, let me try it again.
Yeah.
But the only reason I made this $17,000 because I didn't really have a R unit. I hit a good trade, good timing, and then the next 2 days, the same time and the same effect wasn't there. The same enthusiasm was not there. So for me, it was even though I had a great win on that trade, it was the downfall of just thinking that could continue and not really understanding that why I made money on that trade or what I was doing that was. I was trading for the money, not the consistency at that point. And I think that for me was the series of the next couple of trades of me doing options on Tesla, just trying to repeat the same hit wasn't that beneficial for me. So I would say that was two of the biggest issues. However, after that moment, I remember I sat there, it was 12 o'clock at night. I was sitting out on the deck and I was like, I got to figure this thing out. There's something, I'm not doing something. And that was the moment that I started searching online. That's the moment I found real life trading. That's the moment I started taking some of the courses. And I was like, okay, there's something here. I'm okay at reading the charts. I'm starting to understand that. Options I have to get more involved in, but it was the risk unit for me. I have to actually have some kind of unit of risk. And once I was able to apply that changed the entire game for me. So that really bad series of trades of just giving money back and just realizing I was a one-hit wonder. I wasn't consistently trading. That to me helped improve my trading a lot.
It is one of these. It's such a frustrating game at times. I think trading so frustrating. Yeah. Again, I think I likened it to in a previous episode to like golf. It's just one of these things. You feel like you do the same things over and over again, and then sometimes they don't. But I remember my worst trade, and unfortunately, mine happened as I got better at trading. It happened to me this year, Dan. But my own fault. Again, I was out doing something with the family, and like always, I'm never present. And because I trade forex, it's always available. And Aussie dollar against the US dollar, and had my broker up already. I had it triggered on my trading. We just send me an alert to say, okay, if it reaches this level, then fire me a notification, and I will just get into my trade. It's already set up before I left. So I think it was at dinner, and then I got the notification come through. Perfect. Lesson that I've learned is don't order anything whilst you're trying to set up a trade, because I thought I was using one lot, which is a standard lot size that I normally use when I'm trading the Aussie dollar, US dollar. People in my community will understand why, because I think my win rate trading that pair is very low. So I'm always skeptical. But it was setting up my pattern nicely throughout the day. So I thought, okay, I was going to take it, but I'll use a smaller risk size. For some strange reason, and still to this day, I don't understand what happened, but I put in 3 lot sizes. So I ended up losing 3 times the amount, and I lost on the trade. I lost 3 times the amount that I would have done. And I didn't know until after dinner, once I picked up the bill, which I wish I hadn't done after seeing that trade. But that was just poor lack of concentration for me. being out. And the only thing I can allude to, and I'm not trying to pass blame on any one of my family members because I love them all to pieces. Someone must have mentioned 3. It must have been 3 glasses of wine or 3 prawns peel for starters. It was something because I wouldn't put 3 in normally. So I'm putting the blame on them. Yeah, you heard it here first.
When in doubt. When in doubt. Yeah, no, for sure. So I think a lot of that too. And again, you're an experienced trader. It was a recent mistake. I know for a lot of times, and we have a 90-day masterclass going on to really take people from zero to hero and be able to really get a full concept of the market. So that's going on now, and we have, I think it's like week 8, we have drills for the week of how to quickly enter your orders, quickly do that, because that is there's been times where I've done the same thing. I'm like, yeah, I'm getting in this thing short. Next thing I know, the stock is working great. It's going in my direction. I'm following, and then I look at my balance. I'm like, something's wrong. I'm getting killed on this trade. I don't know what's happening. And it was just, I went short. I went long instead of short on the trade. Right?
Yeah.
I've had other times where I think this is back when I was with early real life trading, and there was a moderator on the mic. He took a trade. Again, I forget the company, but maybe Intel or something like that. And we're getting in the trade, and I'm like, cool, I'm in. I'm with you guys. I like it. And they're all like, okay, we're getting close to 2 hours on this trade. This is looking good. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, I'm up like $5 on this trade. Well, and it was just a matter of me, just careless error of me taking a lot less shares than I was supposed to take on that trade, right? So if you're, and a lot of it could be due to, again, just the thrill of the market, the excitement. There's always things happening. News, there's candles, volume coming in, and you do get that sense of, I don't want to miss out. I want to be in it, but it's one of those things. Just go slower, check the orders. You can be as good as you want at reading charts, but if you're not entering the right thing to the broker's not a mind reader. Unfortunately, we haven't got that far in technology yet. So
maybe that's something we should work on. That we can get the communication from our brains to our broker, so we don't need to type anything. We can just put those waves out there, and it all gets done for us. If anyone can help,
Elon's working on it. Yeah,
yeah, I bet. Well, he's after Twitter at the moment. I think he's preoccupied with that.
We're gonna have to wait at least another month then for brainwave trading.
Do you remember that film, Batman Returns, with the Riddler?
Yep.
And that's what we need. We need someone who can create something like that. We can just plug it on our heads and computes to all the brokers. TradeNation, for example, could be an opportunity for them here. We can maybe do something with those. That's what I'm saying.
That's an opportunity for sure. Yeah. I don't know. So sometimes I'll be looking at numbers. I'm like, I want to get in Tesla 235, and I'll be writing down on my spreadsheet 245. So I don't even know if that's going to be successful for me.
Yeah, no, I get that, and I'm old school as well. Still, by the way, when I'm writing down my plans for my trade, I use a pen and paper to write it down, and then I put it into my broker. I'm not one of these copy and paste type of people. I can't move quick enough. So, yeah, I write it down, and sometimes I'm like, was that my stop loss or was that my entry? And I have to double check all that. So,
which I think is important what works for one doesn't work for the other, right? Everybody moves at their own pace. They'll trade at their own pace. They'll learn at their own pace. Some people are great at a 1-minute chart. Some people are better at 15-minute charts. Yeah, right. It's all. Everybody is born differently. We comprehend information differently. We process and we act on information very differently. So, if you're seeing traders, whether in the real life trading community, whether somewhere on YouTube or Stock Twits or whatever, and they're getting into certain trades, and again, I'm more so a technical trader based on candles, based on what's actually happening on the charts. I know I know of very horrible technical traders in the market, but they're incredible on trading news. Right? Yeah. They're the first ones as soon as news comes in. They process, number one, what that news was about, and then two, how that impacts the market. Like what stocks immediately will be triggered from something like that, and they're able to take plays, sometimes great home runs, and I'm like, man, how'd you do that? Like I have to be trading for a week to do something. But they're very good at that. I can't process. I could process the news. I just can't. For me, I'd just rather have that set risk to reward and be able to trade off volume and trade off who's being trapped. and that works better for me. But again, it's everybody has to find their own unique style and
yeah,
where their sweet spot is.
I love news. So I use technicals as well, but news for me is just like further confluence in my bias for whatever pair I'm trading or whatever industry I'm trading. So I am a big fan of news. And maybe because I do deal with the cash markets, I think it does impact, news does impact Forex a lot more than it probably does with stocks and that things. And maybe that's something that we can talk about, actually. I think that'd be a good conversation is, how much does the news affect stocks than it does in comparison to Forex, right? So, but I do use that. But before we're running out of time for this episode, Dan. It's unlike me to keep track of the time, right? So I want to know that you've had your worst loss or your biggest loss and your worst loss. How did you bounce back from that? What was it that you did in order to come back? Then the next time you took a trade.
Well, yeah, for one, I would say I didn't quit.
Yeah,
I could have easily said this whole market is rigged, bunch of scammers out there, and that's it for me. I'm calling it quits. For me, I think that's the most important thing. If you want to be successful at anything you do, you have to continue to do it. There's going to be ups. There's definitely going to be downs. It's just part of any game. So for me, it was number one, just don't quit. Have the fortitude to understand that it's a longer term process, and then two would be, one, figure out what was wrong. In my situation, it was there was no risk unit. It was just the Wild West of trading. And then two, how could you actually now fix that issue? So one, I would just find out what caused you to make that trade, what caused you to make that move, and then continue the education, right? Learn from other people that have been doing this. So if there's somebody that's been trading for 6 months, learn from that person, right? That's six more. If you're on day one, that's 6 more months of experience that you don't have in the market. If you find somebody that's trading a year, 5 years, 10 years, that's just a wealth of knowledge. And not only can you understand more about the actual market, how it moves, how it flows, how news could affect the markets. We're looking at big news on the macro economy, which I think is affecting the last really 2 years of trading, two and a half years. Find out from somebody that's been around the market in the 2008 crash.
Yeah.
How did that news cycle play out? Find out from traders just to see their journeys of how they were trading when they were six months deep to a year deep to 5 years deep. What did they learn? I could come into the market today blindfolded, not understanding anything about the market, but to know that I could learn from somebody else that's already made the mistakes, that's huge. That's a huge opportunity where I could now not waste 4 or 5 years making the same mistakes. And I'm able to apply what they've gone through in my own trading set. And I think that's helped speed the process. It gives me more confidence to understand that a successful trader that's been trading the markets for the last 10 years, it had the same issue that I had, and they're successful. I mean, that gives you hope. That gives you something to hold on to and really be able to say, okay, well, just because I lose a trade, just because I have a bad trade, which we all do, doesn't mean it's the end of the road. It's just part of the journey. And just really understanding that it's the progression of trading that really makes you a successful trader, that I think helps a lot. So yeah, going on to finding, doing that little Google search, finding real life trading, seeing the different styles of trading, seeing the different opportunities of how people trade, what people look for, that helped me redefine kind of who I was as a trader and helped me progress to the level of being consistently profitable.
Yeah, I think I found the same. There's two parts to my answer to my own question. Very egotistical. But the first part was being part of. I was fortunate enough to be part of real life trading in the community where. So, and I'm not one. I don't know if anyone's figured this out yet. I'm quite vocal. I'm quite confident in talking to people. So I just reached out to people in my community and asked them, would they do anything different? How did they take this? And it's just nice to know that you're not the only one in that boat. And I think when you are trading without a community, sometimes you feel like you're isolated and you're on your own. So I think having those peers around you, especially access to the mentors and the pros who have been doing it for 11 plus years, right? That did help. And then the second that still helps me to this day, I just call up two of my closest friends, Jack and Daniels. We have a good conversation, and I feel much better the next day.
There you go. So it's not a problem; it's a solution. You know.
There you go. Exactly. That's it.
But unfortunately, we are just about out of time. Dean, thanks again for joining as co-host of the Real Life Trading Pivot podcast. Keep in mind, guys, we do have the links below. We both offer coaching sessions. If anybody is struggling, anybody needs help, anybody wants to review their plans, we are more than willing to sit with you and be able to do that. For any of the other free education, make sure you guys check out reallifetrading.com. Again, that is, for me, what helped to change kind of my outlook, my perspective on how to trade and how to get to the level of consistently profitable. And also, we do have links for preferred partners. So check out TradeNation as well. And for everybody, each and every week that joins us at the Real Life Trading Pivot podcast, we really do appreciate you, and we'll catch you on the next episode. See you guys later.